Buongiorno a tutti, scusate che ci siamo un attimo allungati come tempi, ma abbiamo dato un po' la possibilità, naturalmente insomma, a chi ancora era per la strada insomma, di raggiungerci insomma, e quindi di avere questo margine diciamo, di tolleranza. Insomma. Vi ringrazio perché siete qui, naturalmente insomma, come dire, questo insomma, è un'ennesima diciamo così, insomma, no, opportunità o occasione insomma, che l'Assemblea legislativa offre diciamo così, una platea vasta insomma, no, di operatori, insomma, in questo caso insomma, come dire, insegnanti, docenti, insomma, come dire, esperti e comunque insomma, come dire, persone interessate insomma, ad approfondire insomma, il tema della memoria. Insomma. Quindi noi come Assemblea legislativa naturalmente cerchiamo sempre di offrire delle opportunità per poter approfondire, insomma, per avere come dire, insomma, dei percorsi nuovi, innovativi, insomma, per poter affrontare, insomma, come dire, il tema della memoria. Oggi abbiamo, come dire, l'onore, insomma, come dire, insomma, no? E il piacere di poter, come dire, offrirvi questa opportunità attraverso, insomma, dei nostri, che ormai possiamo considerare dei nostri amici, insomma, come dire, insomma, i rappresentanti appunto dello Yad Vashem, a partire dalla professoressa Chiappini, che è la referente appunto in Italia dello Yad Vashem, che ci ha sostenuto e ha reso possibile naturalmente insomma, questo momento, insomma, quindi il coinvolgimento appunto di questa prestigiosa naturalmente, come dire, no? Questo prestigioso ente a livello mondiale. Saluto ancora perché ci siamo visti anche ieri, che ieri abbiamo avuto un altro momento, la dottoressa Schick, naturalmente che saluto ancora, e naturalmente anche il dottor Ashkenazi, insomma, che saranno poi queste persone insomma, che terranno diciamo così, questa giornata insomma, che ha poi dei momenti, poi la professoressa Chiappini poi illustrerà naturalmente come si svolgerà, no, questo momento, quali poi l'organizzazione, perché sono previsti anche a termine insomma, nella tarda mattina del primo pomeriggio poi dei workshop insomma, come dire, no, specifici. Ecco, io mi fermerei qui perché naturalmente non voglio rubare altro tempo. Ringrazio ancora una volta per la vostra partecipazione, la vostra presenza e naturalmente sottolineo insomma, sempre come dire, il ruolo dell'Assemblea legislativa insomma, nel contesto come dire, di un progetto importante, qual è appunto conCittadini, quello di offrire insomma, no, delle opportunità, delle occasioni in modo che si possa fare rete, insomma, no? Quindi collegare, connettere diciamo, no? Tutta una serie di esperienze, tutta una serie di realtà in modo che insomma, si possa appunto offrire delle opportunità per poter poi costruire insomma, no? nei territori, nelle scuole, insomma, eccetera, sempre delle occasioni per affrontare meglio con strumenti innovativi insomma, questa tematica. Velocemente e brevemente due parole per Rosy Manari, che voi conoscete, e poi la parola alla professoressa Chiappini.
Si sente? Sì. Due parole, proprio due, giusto perché all'interno di questa giornata ci sono molti amici, molte persone che già vivono l'esperienza di conCittadini con noi e quindi conoscono benissimo conCittadini, ma oggi ci sono anche persone che conCittadini non lo conoscono da pochissimo oppure sono presenti a questa giornata perché sono state invitate, perché la giornata di oggi era stata concepita proprio come occasione per diffondere una pratica della memoria, una pratica dello studio della memoria secondo certi canoni, quindi per definizione era una giornata molto aperta. Per questa ragione oggi ci sono persone che a conCittadini non appartengono. Una parola su conCittadini, perché diversamente non capireste che cos'è e perché siete qui. conCittadini di fatto era il frutto di progetti che in passato l'Assemblea legislativa ha realizzato, ha fatto morire all'interno di un nuovo progetto appunto che si configurò come il risultato del meglio che in questi anni l'Assemblea legislativa e lavorava sui temi della cittadinanza. In realtà conCittadini è partito come progetto, ma poi è diventato una cosa completamente diversa. conCittadini non è neanche più un progetto, lo sa chi ci vive dentro, è una comunità di persone che fanno cose, fanno belle cose, fanno cose di impegno sul versante della cittadinanza, investono sulle future generazioni nei modi più svariati e secondo tematiche che sono tre filoni di approfondimento, che sono la memoria, i diritti e la legalità. Ecco, chi è in conCittadini credo condivida con me l'affermazione che adesso farò. Dentro conCittadini ci sono delle gran belle persone, perché ci sono dei gran bei percorsi e perché c'è molto impegno, c'è molto calore, è una comunità di persone che hanno ancora la voglia di sognare, hanno dei sogni, hanno delle cose che pensano di poter realizzare e lo fanno assieme al loro Parlamento, al Parlamento regionale. Questo per noi è un grandissimo onore, vivere all'interno del Parlamento regionale e accompagnare chi lavora sui temi della cittadinanza nei modi più svariati, e chi sta dentro conCittadini lo sa, anche in maniera delle volte molto empirica. Forse è per questo che si realizzano delle cose vere. È un grandissimo onore. Ringrazio tutti quelli che sono con noi, tutte le volte non smetto di farlo perché è sempre un'occasione per farlo. Ringrazio di questo percorso che facciamo insieme, che oggi ci porta ad approfondire il tema della memoria. Settimana prossima assieme approfondiremo il tema dei diritti e della legalità. È l'inizio di conCittadini 2013-2014. In questo anno vi seguiremo, saremo con voi, vi invitiamo a segnalarci tutte le esigenze che avrete per consentirci di starvi vicino davvero e non in maniera astrusa. Grazie.
Bene, buongiorno a tutti, benvenuti, grazie di essere qui. Io sono Rita Chiappini, sono un'insegnante italiana, insegno a Rimini, in un liceo, nel liceo Serpieri. Oggi sono qui per dare una mano alla realizzazione di questo seminario sul tema della memoria secondo Yad Vashem, e sarò brevissima nell'introduzione, e volevo anche dirvi che magari non tutti conoscono Yad Vashem, non tutti neanche sanno quindi l'articolazione, possono anche capire bene che cosa sta succedendo, ma abbiamo dovuto spostare un pochettino nel diario di oggi le spiegazioni, quelle più semplici, quelle che si danno all'inizio, perché la collega Namashik deve tornare, perché noi siamo qui dall'altro ieri abbiamo avuto un grosso meeting con un gruppo di insegnanti che è già stato a Gerusalemme e ha fatto già dei corsi di formazione, quindi questo era un secondo livello. Quindi lei dopo deve prendere un volo, quindi fa il suo intervento che è molto molto interessante, e diciamo che le spiegazioni che dovevano essere prima le spostiamo dopo, ok? Quindi io intanto ringrazio voi di essere qui e non posso esimermi davvero di ringraziare il dottor Criserà che ha lavorato tanto perché si realizzasse questa giornata, e la giornata di ieri. Noi da aprile che ci vediamo, ormai siamo diventati amici, perché per cercare di muovere cose, di lavorare nelle direzioni giuste e dare la possibilità a Bologna di avere questa opportunità. Quindi veramente c'è gente che viene di domenica, che apre gli uffici quando dovrebbero essere chiusi, che ci mette veramente il cuore in questo progetto, credetemi. E da quando li abbiamo conosciuti abbiamo visto un lato dell'amministrazione che magari non immaginavamo, così efficiente e così motivato. A questo punto do la parola al mio collega israeliano, Iftach Ashkenazi, che farà un breve... no. Don't you give a greeting, just a welcome?
I just want to say thank you all very much for coming, and I will give to my colleague Dr. Namashik. She will greet from Yad Vashem. So.
Namashik è un membro importante dello staff dello Yad Vashem, capirete meglio più tardi tutto, e lei si occupa del dipartimento internet, ma in particolare oggi vi parlerà di un argomento secondo me molto interessante e non molto ancora indagato, perché guarda la Shoah con lo sguardo del genere, e trovo che questo sia molto interessante. È veramente prezioso averla qui. Quindi grazie ancora di esserci, io starò con voi sempre, quindi non ci perdiamo di vista, e diamo la parola a Namashik. To give my lecture? Or? Yes.
Okay, good morning. I will just say a few words of greeting.
Se capite bene, se sentite bene.
Okay? I want to take to the regional parliament of Emilia-Romagna and to Alessandra Crisera who had to go. I'm sorry. And to Carlo who is here. I want to take to Professor Rita Capiani. Chiappini. Rita, look. I want to thank Rita Chiappini. I want to thank our 3 teacher graduates who stayed here, and they will deliver the workshop. Professor, please excuse my pronouncing, okay, but Patrizia Biaggi and Paolo Pazzato and Valeria Giron. Good? Good. So I want to thank them very much, and I mostly want to thank you for coming and to be with us today. I will give the lecture, and then you will see me running because I have to run to the airport to go back to Israel, so you have to excuse me for this, and I think we can begin. They told me that I really have to stick to the microphone, otherwise they can't translate me. We will talk today about Jewish women in Auschwitz and Italian Jewish women in Auschwitz. As Rita was saying, I work in Yad Vashem in the last 14 years, and my PhD is concerning, in total, Jewish women in Auschwitz. And what you see here is the entrance to Auschwitz. I will say a few words about the camps. Auschwitz was the largest extermination camp for Jews. Jews from all over Europe were sent to Auschwitz. 1.2 to 1.3 Jews were murdered in Auschwitz. The other victims that were murdered in Auschwitz were Sinti and Roma, 23,000 Sinti and Roma, 80,000 Poles, 15,000 Soviet POWs, and 50,000 what we call others, which are homosexual, Jehovah's Witnesses, Ukrainians. But of course, mainly it was an extermination camp for Jews. Auschwitz is kind of a special camp. You know, we do speak about 6 extermination camps. We speak, if you go by order, we speak about Chelmno, all of them in Poland. We speak about Chelmno, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, Majdanek, and Auschwitz. Auschwitz is special among these extermination camps, and also Majdanek, but Majdanek we will leave it aside right now, because Auschwitz was also a work camp and a concentration camp. So it was actually a complex of 3 main camps. Auschwitz I, which was a concentration camp. Auschwitz II, Birkenau, which was extermination camp. Buna Monovice, which is Auschwitz III, was a work camp, and also it had 39 other sub-camps. So we're speaking about a huge complex of work and mainly murder. It's important to know also that we have quite a lot of survivors from Auschwitz. Unlike, if we will compare it, for example, can't see you. I will sit here. Now it's better. Yeah, now I can see you. Unlike other extermination camps, like for example Treblinka or Sobibor or Belzec or Chelmno, which were strictly extermination camp, what I mean is that the Jews were transferred by the Germans and the people who helped them, like Ukrainians and Lithuanians. They were sent to the extermination camp and immediately murdered. This is why we don't almost have survivors from this camp. For example, from Chelmno, we had 3 survivors. None of them is alive today. From Belgium, we had 3 survivors too. None of them is alive. From Sobibor and Treblinka, we had from each one like 150, 200 survivors. From Auschwitz, we had 60,000 survivors. Most of them are not alive today, and not all of them Jews. We have to remember that, and we do have so many survivors from Auschwitz because it was a complex, because it was not only an extermination camp, it was also work camp and extermination camp. The camp, it's important to remember, was established as a camp, concentration camp for Poles. It only became a Jewish camp in 1942. And it was established in 1940, the spring of 1940, and it was established as a camp for Polish prisoners. We are speaking here about people who were against the Nazis, about teachers, about other free occupation, thinking about people who the Nazis thought they may be against the Nazi regime occupation in Poland. So at the beginning, it was a concentration camp for Poles. If you will ever go to Auschwitz, you will see that many Poles are visiting the site. Many students are visiting the site, and because in the camp there were imprisoned 150,000 Poles. Out of them, about, the numbers are not exact, 80,000 to 90,000 were murdered in the camp. We do have Jews in the camp in 1941, but it's a small amount. The first transport of Jews arrived to Auschwitz on March 1942. And from that time, we can speak about Auschwitz as the biggest extermination camp for the Jews from all over Europe. Another distinction that is important for us to note between this camp, between the other extermination camp like Belzec, Chelmno, Sobibor, and Treblinka and Auschwitz, is that in the other camps, most of the people, the Jews who were murdered them, came from Poland, were transferred from Poland. And if we speak about Auschwitz, Jews from all over Europe were transferred there. We speak about Jews from France, Italy, Hungary, Greece, Belgium, Slovakia, Czechia, of course also Poland. Hungary, I said, yeah. So we do speak about the camp that was the biggest extermination camp for the Jews from Europe. So these were a few words about Auschwitz camp. The quote that you see here, there is a place on earth, is a quote from a Juliana Tedeschi book. We will speak about her later. She is a Jew. She was born in Milan, and later on then she moved to Turin. And she was sent to Auschwitz with her husband, her husband's mother, and her 2 children stayed in Italy, in Turin, and actually survived. She survived, of course, but we will talk later about her. I want to say a few words about the historical context that we speak today. We are marking 70 years for 1943 and 70 years for the transfer of the Jews from Italy mainly to Auschwitz. They were first sent to transit camp, for example, like Fossoli, which is somewhere nearby. That was a transit camp, and later on from there they were sent to Auschwitz. Most of them did not survive. It is interesting to say, as you can see here, that you probably know that on July, the Allies occupied Sicily, which means that the southern part of Italy was at the hand of the Allies. And this is a unique case. If we speak about Italy, it's unique because we don't have any other country that simultaneously you have the Allies controlling like almost half of the country, and then you have the Germans after the collapse of the fascist regime, I don't have to tell you about it, of course, and then the Germans are occupying northern Italy. We also have the Battle of Stalingrad, and this is really important here when we speak about 1943, because after the Battle of Stalingrad and the German defeat in this battle, it is clear actually to everybody that the Germans will lose the war, that they are not going to win the war. And this is crucial from our perspective, because if we think here about Nazi ideology, you would assume that the state, that the Reich, okay, the German Reich, who is losing, who is about to lose the 1,000 year of German Reich all over Europe, is about to lose the war, you would have assumed that they will put all of their effort in order to win the war. But what is interesting here and what was unique about German and Nazi regime is the ideological aspect. Because think about, for example, about the Italian Jews. They have been sent to Auschwitz since October 1943 and mainly in 1944. So the Germans are bringing, their officers, they're bringing the trains, they're having all the operation. They are actually, sorry for the phrase that you will usually use for animals, but this is exactly what they did. They actually were hunting the Jews. If you think about what happened in Rome, for example, they were really hunting the Jews, looking for them from house to house. And you ask yourself, why weren't they putting these efforts of winning the war? Think about the Hungarian Jews. On May, June, at the beginning of July, in 10 weeks, 1944, it's obviously clear that the Germans are losing the war. There are places in Europe already about in the East to be liberated, but they are taking almost 500,000 of Hungarian Jews and sending them to Auschwitz. So what I'm trying to say here, that the ideological aspect of the German Nazi regime is really, really important, because on the one hand, they're losing the war, and you would think or assume that they will put their entire effort in order to reoccupy Europe or occupied Russia, which former USSR, which they didn't manage. But no, what you can see is that they are putting much effort and a lot of effort that they needed actually for the war in order to continuously kill the Jews and send them at that period mainly to Auschwitz extermination camp. So this is important for us to note. It's also important to us for note in 1943 to remember the Jews from Greece. There were areas in Greece, as you well know, that were occupied. I don't know if it's PC to say occupied, but it was occupied by the Italians during that time. And after the fascist defeat, the Germans are taking these places over. They are conquering them, like Rhodos and Ioannina and other places in Italy. And it's interesting to see that until that time, these Jews were safe. The Italians, the fascist Italians, did have racist laws. But when we speak about sending the Jews to concentration camps, they did, I'm looking for the word, they did manage to secure them. We speak about the Jews in Rhodos. We speak, for example, about Jews in some part of Croatia, which were occupied by the fascist Italian. And when the Italians are leaving these areas, these Jews are being immediately, in 43 and mainly in 44, sent to Auschwitz. So this is a crucial year for the Germans, for the Italians, and mainly for the Jews in these countries. Let's say a few words about the Italian Jews. This is, by the way, Ferramonte, Italy, You can see this is family, and this is again the camp. These Jews, by the way, as I said yesterday, were actually saved, because that was part of kind of southern Italy, and they were not sent to Auschwitz. They were actually liberated by the Allies. About 7,500 Jews from Italy and more than 7,000 Jews from Greece, Italy, and occupied areas, as I said, like Rhodos, were sent to Auschwitz in 1943 and 1944. Most of them did not survive. If we speak about Italian Jews and Greek Jews, who are Italian or not Italian, but Greek and Italians, we have to remember that they suffered in Auschwitz from two problems that others or other Jews did not survive. It goes mainly for the Jews from Greece. If we speak about the weather, they couldn't handle the Polish weather. The Jews from Italy, if we speak about Rome and Milan, it's different because it's northern Italy, so they're quite used to a cold weather. But one of the most problematic things was the language. They didn't know Yiddish. Do you know what Yiddish is? Okay. And they didn't know German. And if you were not able to understand the commands that were given by the Germans, I think you're gonna see Ovadia Baruch film today. In one of the workshop today, you will see a film about a Greek Jew. His name is Ovadia Baruch. He was sent from Saloniki, so it doesn't really concern to the Italian aspect, but he was sent from Saloniki to Auschwitz in 1943. And he speaks there in length about the fact that they couldn't understand the orders that were given by the Germans. And the Germans, each one of the German guards used to walk with a huge stick, and with a stick, really huge, like a baseball. And with this stick, they used to hit the prisoners. And actually, they called it in German, to this stick, they called it Dulmaster. Dulmaster in German, it means translator, which means, think about the cynicism, which means that if he or she, did not understand the German commands, they would just hit him or her until they would understand. This is why this stick is called, in a very ironic, sarcastic way, the translator. And the same problem was to the Italian Jews. They did not understand the orders. And if you didn't understand the orders, you can just be killed because a German told you, I don't know, stand straight, and you didn't, like you keep your shoulders down or something, and you can be just shot to death only because you didn't stand straight, or only because you didn't take your hat at the same time that you had to do it. Or if you had problems, for example, to remember your number in German. The prisoners, of course, did not have... It's important for me to note, only in Auschwitz complex, the numbers were tattooed on the body. Usually on the left, in the inner part of the left arm. You can see numbers that are here in the outside, but usually it was here, but only in Auschwitz it was tattooed on the bodies. In other camps, they had the numbers on the uniforms, on the backs or somewhere else. And they had to remember, I guess you probably read Primo Levi. I hope. And if not, if this is a man, he's a classic book. It's really a classic book. And I was saying it yesterday, we have many memoirs concerning the Holocaust. All of them are interesting and have historical importance. But not all of them are classical from literature point of view. And Primo Levi was a great writer. Beside the fact that he wrote about Auschwitz, and it's really important for us, he was a brilliant writer. So it is a classic book. And he talks there about his number and about the fact that you have to know to say the number in German. And many people don't know German. And this is problematic because on the roll call, sometimes they call your number in German. If you don't understand that someone is calling you, you are in a big problem. As I said, I go back here. The first transport was of Italian Jews. Was sent on October 23, 1943. 1,030 Jews, Jewish men, women, and children arrived at the transport from Rome. Something about the numbers. We know approximately the number of Jews who were killed in Auschwitz. This is why I said 1.2 million to 1.3. But in some places, we know exactly, 1,030 Jews, because these are transport. And some of the transport documents remains. This is how we can tell you exactly how many Jews were sent to Auschwitz, how many men, how many women, how many children, and sometimes, as here, we can also tell you their ages. So the first transport was sent from Rome to Auschwitz. 1,030 Jewish men, women, and children arrived in transport. 296 are children under the age of 17, which means that they did not enter the camp as prisoners, but were immediately murdered upon arrival. 193 children less than 10 years, which were definitely sent immediately to the gas chambers, and 20 who are babies less than a year. I don't know if you remember, if you read, if this is a man by Primo Levi, but he speaks there about Emilia. You remember her? He speaks about this 3-year-old child, beautiful, vivid. I mean, every child is beautiful. It's like child, and he speaks about her. She was with him in the same wagon on the way to Auschwitz, and he speaks about her. And if I remember correctly, he says he's looking at the gas chambers, and he says, "This is the way Emilia, 3 years old Emilia, died." After the selection on the ramp, 149 men and 47 women are admitted to the camp as prisoners. The remaining 839 people are killed in the gas chambers. In April and March, in 1993, we have 3,400 Jews who will be sent to Auschwitz. And in April, November 44, 5,500 Jews from Italy are being sent and murdered, most of them in Auschwitz, and more than 7,000 Jews are being sent from other areas that were occupied by the Italians. The last transport of Italian Jews arrived to the camp at October 28, 1944. This date is amazing because it's not only that the Germans are losing the war, there are eastern parts who are already liberated. There are parts that they're already liberated from the German occupation. And the Germans keep on sending Jews for the camps, which is, you can see the ideological aspect which never ceases. You would assume, as I said before, that, okay, 1944, you're totally losing the war. And you are, the Germans, you want to conquer Europe, okay? You want to be the 1,000-year Reich who will, but no, they're losing the war, but they keep on doing their ideological thing, their ideological aspect. And they're not giving up until the end. If you think about the death marches, and if you will have time to speak about the death marches, I'm not sure, but for example, Auschwitz is evacuated in January 18, 1944. It's evacuated because the Red Army is already approaching the camp. Majdanek was already liberated, and the Red Army is approaching Auschwitz. And the Germans are marching 60,000, the last prisoners in Auschwitz. It was like 18,000 women and 42,000 men. The last prisoners in Auschwitz were evacuated into Germany. And the death marches, they have two purposes. One of them is that the Red Army or the Allies would not catch the prisoners. Second, is the prisoner to work in the German war industry. And third, they are hoping, and they are right actually, that most of the Jews will not survive these death marches. I will give you an example of one death march. We speak about 900 women who were evacuated from one of the camps in Poland into Germany. 900 women who were marched in the Polish winter, which means minus 25, minus 20. They suffered from severe starvation. They didn't have winter clothes. They have these wooden clogs, these wooden shoes. And they had to march 900 kilometers, which is... At the end, when they arrived to Germany, only 10 of them were alive. So when we speak about death march, this is a death march. It doesn't just get the name death march, as a euphemism. This is a real death march. Let's say a few words about the pictures that we will see today. This is the Auschwitz album. I don't know if you know it, and it's okay if you don't know it. There was a prohibition against taking photos in the camps or in the killing pits. So we don't have many pictures. It depends from where, but from the Holocaust, and we don't have many pictures from actually the killing sites. What is generally called the final solution, of course, in Germany, of the Jewish problem, okay? Jewish in quotation mark. This is a German euphemism and a German term, but there was a prohibition against taking photos there. So we don't have a lot of pictures. For example, from Treblinka, we have 3 pictures. From Sobibor, we have like 1 picture. From Belzec, we have, I would say, half a picture. From the killing sites in the former USSR, we do have pictures, and it's interesting. We have this kind of phenomena in the last decades. We have pictures that were taken by the Germans against their commander's commands, but they were taken by the Germans. And nowadays, actually in the last 15 years, we find, and I have to say, brave, to my opinion, Germans who are second or third generations for SS or for Wehrmacht or for police battalion, who are going to the attics, literally or not literally, and they are finding, it's amazing, pictures that were taken by their fathers and grandfathers in all of these killing sites. And I said brave because, I'm a second generation. My father was in Auschwitz. He was a prisoner in Auschwitz. And my mother, she was hidden in a convent. I don't need to be brave, to say that my father and mother were actually victims. But I think that if my father was an SS officer, a murderer, perpetrator, it was more difficult for me to say out loud, look, these are the pictures that were taken by my father when he was served in Auschwitz as an SS. So I do think there is something brave about the fact that they are publishing these photographs and films, and okay, this is really interesting, and we think, by the way, we are historians, we are not prophets, but we think that in the next decades we will find more and more and more pictures, because we do know that the Germans took the pictures even if there was a prohibition against it. So it's interesting because in the Yad Vashem archives, you will think 70 years after the Holocaust, what else can you find? But in the Yad Vashem archives in Jerusalem, which is the hugest archives about the Holocaust, every month we are getting new materials. And you ask yourself, how come 70 years later you are getting new materials? But we are still getting new materials. The Auschwitz album is another story. This is almost the only documents that we have from Auschwitz, mainly from Birkenau. The second name of this album is Lily Yaakov album, or Lily Jacob album. You can see here, after the Holocaust, of course, and you can see here in the middle, Lily Yaakov as a prisoner in Birkenau. She was a Jew from Hungary, from Carpato-Rutenia, but from our perspective, it's Hungary at that time. And these are her brothers, Zelig and Israel, who were murdered in Auschwitz. This is a very unique album. Lily Jacob is arriving to Auschwitz in June 1944 with her entire family, brothers, sisters, parents, nephews. All of them are being sent immediately in the selection. We will speak about the selection to the gas chambers. Lily entered the camp as a prisoner. She managed to stay alive until November 1944, when she is evacuated from Auschwitz in one of the death marches that left the camp, and she's transferred into Germany, and she's finally liberated by the Americans in a camp called Dora Mittelbau, which is a sub-camp of Buchenwald. I don't know if you heard about Buchenwald. It's exactly beneath Weimar, which is always, whatever. I always think, in Weimar, of course you have Weimar Republic, and of course in Weimar you have Goethe Oak, Goethe was writing in Weimar, and from Weimar you can see Buchenwald. And you think about this Hochdeutsch, this high Deutsch education, and you think about Goethe and Schiller, and you think about Weimar and Goethe sitting there and writing, and from Weimar you can see Buchenwald. And it's almost something which make you puzzled. So Lily was liberated in Dora Mittelbau, which is in that area, by the Americans. She was sick with typhoid, like most of the survivors. It's not the subject of this lecture, but we have to remember that I would say 99%, in order not to say 100%, but 99% of what we call the survivors were liberated. They were really, really sick. Typhus, dysentery, malnutrition. Lily was sick too. The Americans took her to some kind of improvised hospital, and they put this hospital in a former SS barrack. So that was a block for the SS guard. The SS guard, of course, ran away before the American came, and now they put the sick prisoner in this barrack. And Lily was there, and she was cold. She was shivering because of the typhus, and she was looking for a blanket. So she got up and she opened a cupboard, and there she found an album. And it's a real album. We have it in Yad Vashem. In the museum you can see it. It's album, like a regular picture album. And she opens it, and she recognized her rabbi from her city, and then she recognized her brother, and then she recognized herself. And then she understands that this album is documenting her transport. This album used to contain 202 pictures. Now we have 196 pictures, because during the years, Lily gave pictures to people who recognized themselves. It's not a subject of my lecture, but just think about the fact that Holocaust survivors, not to mention the fact they don't have, of course, family. They don't have anything, but they don't even have family pictures. We don't often think about it. For example, I have no clue how my grandfather, my grandmother, my aunts and aunties will look like. All of them were murdered in Auschwitz. No family picture. If a Holocaust survivor have, a family picture or picture of his father or his mother, it's something that it's like a treasure that runs in the family. So during the years, Lily gave 6 pictures to people who recognized themselves or the family member. This album documents arriving to the camp, It documents the selection. It documents mainly women and children who are going to the gas chambers. It does not enter the gas chambers. We don't have pictures from inside the gas chambers. And it also documents men and women who are selected to be prisoners, like here, after the selection and after the sauna. Only, I'm running out of time, but only in the 60s, when there were Auschwitz trials, we get to know who took these pictures. These were 2 SS officers who worked in Auschwitz. We know that Rudolf Höss, Auschwitz commander, gave them permission to give these pictures, but we don't know why. There are different assumptions. Usually I don't like assumptions, because if we're dealing with history, we need to have the facts. And if we don't know the facts, we have to say that we don't know the facts. We don't know why he gave them the permission, but he gave. And so all of the pictures that we're going to see today, unless I will say otherwise, will be from Auschwitz album. What you see here is Jewish women after going through the sauna. These are women who were selected to enter the camp as prisoners. It is interesting to see, because usually when people think about Auschwitz, they think about the strip uniforms. And what you see here are not stripped uniforms, because it depends on the period that he or she arrived to the camp. At the first 2 years, they were wearing strip uniforms and also the uniforms of the murdered Soviet POWs. Then in 43 and 44, they were wearing also the strip uniform, but also rags. The Jews brought their property with them. The German took all the valuable property like diamonds and furs and expensive watches and all things that are valuable, and sent them to Germany. But if they were bringing, like rags, it stayed in the camp, and they saw from it the uniforms. So this is why they're not wearing uniforms. Let's say a few words about the uniqueness of the female experience in the Holocaust, but because we don't have time, we'll mainly speak about Auschwitz, even though it is right also for ghettos and other camps. First, we have the Nazi ideology. In the Nazi ideology, we have 2 things which are referring to the specific gender experience during the Holocaust. First, women are considered to be, Jewish women, to be the mothers of the next generation. And this if they will survive, and if the Germans will not win the war and all this. So this is one reason for them to being murdered. And second, there is sexism in Nazi ideology, which sees in women less powerful work power. So this is why, for example, in Auschwitz, more women and children are being murdered than men. Men considered to be more fit to work than women. And women, because of this sexism, is one, less fit for work, and second, they are the mothers of the next generation. This is one. Second, we have female physiology, which of course responsible, if you can say responsible, for some of the part of the uniqueness of the female experience in the camp. Let's speak, for example, about pregnancies. Pregnant Jewish women, and I'm saying Jewish, not because I'm a Jew, but because there was a difference in Auschwitz between, for example, Polish women and Ukrainian women and Jewish women. Because, for example, Polish women, Sinti Roma women, and Ukrainian women were allowed to give birth in Auschwitz and Birkenau. They went through the selection, even though if they were pregnant, and they were allowed to have babies in the camps. Most of the babies, of course, did not survive, but they were not killed immediately. Jewish women, if it was recognizable during the selection that they are pregnant, they were sent immediately to the gas chambers because they were pregnant. We know about a few hundreds women, and probably there were more, who were managed to hide the pregnancy. And again, it's important to say here something. The Jews who arrived to Auschwitz did not know that they were arriving an extermination camp. They thought they were arriving to some kind of work camp in the East. So how come I'm saying they're hiding the pregnancy? But it's interesting to see. Some of them of these hundreds didn't know that they were pregnant. They were in the first, second, or third month, and they didn't know that they were pregnant yet. Others had this kind of hinge, I would say, that it's not such a good idea to say to the Germans that you are pregnant. And they didn't tell it if the pregnancy was not like in 7, 8, and 9 months. But their faith in Auschwitz was, I can say, bad or worst. If a pregnancy of a Jewish woman was discovered in the camp, she would immediately be sent to the gas chambers. In other cases, this is the bad case. The worst case was when, for example, Mengele decided that Dr. Mengele, but I hate to give him the title, so I always call him Mengele. By the way, I don't know if you know, but he had MD, medical doctor, and PhD in genetics. He had two doctor degrees. So I guess Rita and maybe others will speak to you about it, because we always want to think that education is kind of a barrack, or kind of something against evilness, or against stereotypes, or against radical ideological, but the Holocaust actually proved that it's not true. Because many of these SS had more than one PhD. They grew up on what is called the Hochdeutsch education, the High Deutsch education. They really knew Goethe and Schiller and, the German classical literature and music. Mengele used to sing operas to himself by doing the selection, for example. So the assumption that we'd like to believe that education and higher education stand against evil, well, it doesn't always happens. So sometimes Mengele decided that maybe he will do. There is a really famous case of a Jewish Israel. She died 3 years ago. Her name was Ruth Eliaz. She came to Auschwitz from Theresienstadt near Prague. She was Czech and she was pregnant, and she was looking for someone in the camp. She managed to go through the selection and enter the camp, and then she was looking for someone to perform abortion on her. I will speak about the abortions in a minute, but she didn't find anyone. And Mengele, actually it's amazing, she was sent to Ravensbrück. And then in Ravensbrück, this is a concentration camp above Berlin. It's about an hour from Berlin. That was a concentration camp only for women, Ravensbrück. And then when Mengele heard that she was pregnant, he said, well, hello, she is my prisoner. She is Auschwitz prisoner. And she was sent back to Auschwitz. And there he decided to do this medical experiment. And she gave birth to her daughter, to a baby. She gave birth to a baby girl. And Mengele decided to see how long a Jewish girl will survive without eating, without breastfeeding. So he tied actually Ruth's breast And she was lying in a bed, and the baby was lying in the next bed, and I know it's horrible. And Ruth had a friend, she was a doctor, she was a Jewish doctor, and she worked in one of Auschwitz hospitals, and she managed, by risking her life, to get morphine for Ruth. And the baby girl was injected with this morphine in order that she will be saved from her suffer. And the next day, Mengele, it took 3 days, okay, of dying, until they managed to have this morphine and to redeem, actually, this baby girl from her suffering. And then Mengele came, and he was really furious. What happened to the baby? What happened? Who killed or whatever? And Ruth survived. She immigrated to Israel. She said she had two boys. And you know, when you ask her how many children you have, she used to say, I have 3 children. I have 1 dead girl and 2 boys. In order to avoid it, there were, what we can see in the camp were kind of practice that Jewish doctors, who were doctors before coming to Auschwitz, or Jewish nurses, were performing abortions or even early labors in these Jewish pregnant women. It sounds horrible, and it is horrible, but when we speak about the Holocaust, sometimes we speak about what Lawrence Langer, he's a scholar from Yale, he's a literature scholar, term choiceless choices. Jewish children cannot live in Auschwitz. But the mothers, they had chance to live. So the choice was, or the choiceless choice was, between letting the mother and the baby be killed, and as I was mentioned of the case of Ruth Elias, with great suffer, or at least save the mother life. It's more easy, if I can say more easy about it, when we speak about the first, second, and third month. By the way, in Judaism, until the 6th month, an embryo doesn't consider to be a living entity or living person. Only from the 6th month is considered to be a baby, okay? Of course, it was so much difficult when we speak about women who had to give birth, actually to give birth in the camp, like in the 9th month. And the doctors and nurses who were doing this were risking their life. If the Germans would have known that a Jewish woman gave birth in the block, they will kill the doctor or the nurse, the mother, and many times the entire block, which contained 1,000 Jewish women. So these abortions or these labors actually were performed usually between the hours of 2 a.m., 2 in the morning to 4 in the morning, when the Germans were not around. Well, I guess, I don't know, it's too difficult, but it was of course performed with 2 hands, no anesthesia. I mean, you can imagine, this is Auschwitz block. We are not speaking about a hospital. 2 hours later, in 4 in the morning, these women had to stand for the roll calls. The doctors and the nurses did what I consider to be a grace with the women. And even when we speak about the 8th or 9th month, and where the babies were born alive and healthy, there were research about it. It's interesting to see that even if the mother is starving, the baby, the Amma, will get what it's need. He will take from the mother body, but they told them that the babies were still born, were born dead. In order to make, in a way, the mothers to feel a bit better. But usually what happens is that they had to murder the babies, to kill them. So this is one aspect of female physiology. About the women themselves, look, the doctors, they felt, even though, we have to remember, they saved the women's life by risking their own life, they felt pangs of guilt for years. It's interesting to see there was one famous doctor, Gisela Perl, who did this in Auschwitz, and she said to herself that she can't die. She was a gynecologist, and she said to herself, she promised to herself, she take a vow that she will not die after liberation before she was give birth to double a time number of babies as the baby that she had abortion. That she said to herself, okay, I killed like 20 babies in Auschwitz, I have to give birth after liberation to 40. And she managed to do it. She immigrated to Israel after the war, and she was a gynecologist in Shaare Tzedek Hospital. This is in Jerusalem. And she worked there until 1987. If we go back to speak about the women, the mothers, look, I think that some of them didn't recover from this experience, if you can call it experience. Most of them did build new families, but to say or to think that this is kind of experience that you can forget will be, of course, stupidity. This is an open wound. It depends, of course, on the personality of the person, how she recovers and how she is. Another thing about female physiology is the threat of sexual abuse. I don't have a lot of time, so I won't talk about it a lot, but the German case is unique if we think about genocides like in Rwanda or in the Balkans or in Darfur. Because of Nazi ideology, because of Nuremberg laws, they were not allowed to have intercourse with Jewish women. I'm not saying here that there were nicer men than the Serbs who rape the Bosnians. I'm just saying that it was prohibited from them to rape Jews. It considered to be treason. They could be executed if someone would have catch them raping a Jewish woman. It doesn't mean the Jewish women were not raped during the war, but they were raped in a less quantity than if we think again about Rwanda or about what happened in the Balkans, mainly in Bosnia, and what happened in Darfur nowadays. Like, there is this practice in this genocide of what is termed raping the enemy. And I don't know if you know, in 2005, the UN put into its laws that raping women during the war is considered to be a crime against humanity. This is a new law, only from 2005. If you go back to the Germans and to the Nazis, in the camps, women were rarely raped by the Germans, but in the former USSR, in the areas of what is today Ukraine and Lithuania and Latvia and all these areas, and mainly Ukraine, we know that Jewish women were raped. I can't tell you how many. I can't tell you 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 cause or a few hundreds. I don't know. We don't know. Because what happens is that the German did it, and later on they immediately murdered them. So this is about... and also, if we speak about gender differences, it is a gender cultural characteristic. We can see a difference about the way men and women are experiencing their life, are remembering their life, and writing about it. I will give you one example concerning hunger. For example, I don't know if you remember, but Primo Levi, in his book, If This Is a Man, is talking, he's sitting in Buna Monovitz, Auschwitz III, and he speaks And he dreams, like daydreams, about the spaghetti that he didn't finish in Fossoli. He really speaks about it, that before, the night before they were transferred to Auschwitz, they had this dinner with he says, with a very good spaghetti. Of course, when you sit in Bona Monovitz, every spaghetti considered to be like 5-star spaghetti. And he keep on thinking about how come I didn't finish my spaghetti and now I'm so hungry. And that was Primo Levi. But what you can see the difference between men and women. Men in Auschwitz will think and dream about meals that are being prepared for them. That a wife or a mother or a sister are preparing the meal for them. Women, well, they will speak or suffer from hunger and will speak about it, will cook. We have, for example, books of menus from the camps. We have it from Westerburg in Holland, and we have it from Theresienstadt. Women were actually, in order to try and fight the starvation, they were cooking for each other. So we have actually recipes that women were, we have, for example, conversations in Auschwitz, record conversation that they were saying, okay, I used to make my spaghetti with ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, and I used to make my goulash, if we speak about Hungarian women, with this and this. So this is, for example, one gender differences. I want to show you one different experiences. This is Juliana Tedeschi, but we don't have time, but this book is really recommended. If you don't know it, she, again, like Primo Levi, it's not only an important book from historical perspective, you can see it? Yeah. But it's also very good literature. But I want to say something, okay, because I have like 8 minutes. Let's speak more about gender differences when we actually enter the camp. And what you see here is a selection. Selection, you know, a German word for choice. What you see here are prisoners in the left, also in the left here, from Canada Commando. That was a working squad in Auschwitz. Their job was, they had 2 jobs: to stand on the ramp where the Jews came and to say, to relax them. The Germans were really good psychologists, and they thought that if the new arrivals will meet prisoners like themselves, who probably will know Yiddish or another language that they will understand, and they will tell them, well, you are in a camp, work camp in the East, you will see your women and children later, everything is okay, don't worry. We will go back to them in a second. What you see in the middle is an SS doctor who is performing the selection. It was always a doctor. The logic behind it was that a doctor can say in a second who is fit for work and who doesn't. And what you see here is a Jewish woman, these are all Jews, with her baby. I think it's a baby girl because you can't see it, but because I think she wears a dress. And she's being sent to the gas chamber. She's been sent immediately to the gas chamber, even though she's a young woman. We're speaking about women between the age of, I would say, 25 to 35, or even 20 to 35. If she would have stand here, oh, what happened? Can you stay here? Okay, sorry. Okay, but we can watch here. If she would have stand without the baby in her arms, she was probably being sent to the camp as a prisoner and get a chance to survive. If we go back to the Canada Commando prisoners, many of them risked their life and warned the Jews who came. And really risked their life. If the Germans and it's crowded with Germans. We can't see all of them, but it's crowded. And if the German would have saw it, we took them behind the train and shot them to death. But you can warn only 2 groups. One of them, there was no dilemma about it. There was young boys and girls, and they went through and they were whispering in different languages. When you are heading this SS doctor, say that you are 16 or 17 and you have a profession. For example, this is the way how my father survived. He was 14 when he arrived to Auschwitz. And 14 children did not enter the camp as prisoners. But one person from Canada Commando told him, say that you are 16 and say that you have a profession. And this is how he managed to enter the camp and eventually to survive. But there is no dilemma here. I mean, to lie to the German doctor, it's not a dilemma. The dilemma comes here with the women. And let's read Laura Varun's testimony. I will read it for you. Laura Varun, she was a survivor from Rhodos. So she was sent to Auschwitz after fascist Italy and after the Germans took over of Rhodos. And she said like this: 2 men in strip uniforms, because they heard us speaking in Ladino. Ladino is the Yiddish of the Sephardic Jew. Okay? Okay. Because they heard us speaking in Ladino, they told us in Ladino, we are Greeks from Saloniki. Give the children to the old people, they told us. Again, we didn't understood what is meant. How can you understand? Give the children to the old people. And then they were afraid to talk to us. And that's all. Give the children to the old people. This is again what I was referring when I was talking about the pregnancy. This is a choiceless choice. We have to understand there are not Jewish children in the camp. The only children, Jewish children, that were in the camp were the children, almost only the children who had to went through Mengele, so-called Mengele experiments. Okay, we speak about the twins, we speak about the dwarf, but regularly Jewish children are not entering the camp. And these prisoners, of course, know it. And what they are trying to do, they are trying at least to give the mothers a chance for survive. Because as I was saying, they are young women and they had chance to survive if they will enter the camp as prisoners. Most of the Jewish women, and again, as I said yesterday, this is a fact. I'm not saying it because I want to protect them in a way. Most of the Jewish women chose to go to the unknown. It's still unknown. We have to understand. They don't know where they are going, but most of them are not willing to say goodbye, to be apart from their children. And we're speaking about children from day 1 until 14. There are cases, especially in 1944, like here, when the Germans need more work power, like this. And let's read, this is Batia's testimony. One of the bullies, she means the Germans, asked me whose child was standing next to me. She had a 7-year-old boy. My sister, who was standing close by, her sister was older than her, and she knew that she would not pass the selection. My sister who was standing close by wanted to save me. And she said the child was hers. When I yelled out that the child was mine, I was beaten for lying. Then they took away my child, and my sister also went. So we had cases, many other cases, when the Germans are forcibly taking the young children from their mother's arms, giving them to the older people, sometimes from the family, sometimes not from the family. They're not asking, you are his grandmother, or you are his aunt. They're just taking the child, actually throwing him to to the arms of another woman, and then the mothers are actually forced to enter the camp without the children. I have to finish, and I want to finish with something which is a bit optimistic. By the way, I don't have time, but this is Malat Simetbaum, the first Jewish woman who escaped from the camp. It's a beautiful story, but it doesn't have a good end. But she fell in love, Malat Simetbaum. She was a Jewish woman. She was born in Poland, but then her parents, when she was 8, were immigrating to Belgium, to Brussels, and she was sent to Auschwitz as early as 1942. She knew 7 languages, and this is why she became kind of a translator. And the Germans, by the way, they really, in a way, they appreciate her. And she fell in love with Edek Galinsky. He was a Pole who arrived to Auschwitz. We will conclude with this. Who arrived to Auschwitz as early as 1940, and they fell in love. And it was a beautiful love story. And Edek was actually planning to try and escape from Auschwitz with his Polish friend Wisław Killer. And after he fell in love with Mala, and he told him that he wants to take Mala with them, Wisław Killer says, "No way, I'm running with a Jewess." Because to run away with a Jew, it was high risk. And Edek, he was in love with Mala, and he said, "Okay, so I'm running with Mala. You can do whatever you like. I'm going to run away with Mala." And they escaped, as you can see here, in June 1944. They were captured almost a month later. There are several stories concerning how they will capture, but I will prefer to tell you today, even though I'm not sure that that's the correct one, the romantic one, because the romantic one says that Mala, they enter someone and they were separated. Mala was entering some kind of a shop to buy something, and Edek was standing outside, and he saw that she was captured, and he said, I said the romantic version, he says, "Maybe it's true. I can't leave her." And he actually came and joined her, and both of them were brought back to Birkenau. They were tortured by the SS in order, to give information. None of them say anything. Then they were executed. And then Edek was executed in the men camp, and he managed to say, "Long live Poland," before. And Mala said to herself that she's going to die the way she wants. And the Lager Capo, Capo, it's Italian word, the head of Block 11, which is the torture block, risked his life and gave her a razor blade. And she hid the razor blade in her hair. She had like 3 centimeter hair, and she hated. And when she was about to execute it, the camp commandant was giving this speech like, "This is unsere Mala, our Mala." Our Mala, the Germans. Yeah. How come she betrayed us, and she wanted to leave Auschwitz and escape, and now we're going to execute her? But before he managed to finish, he said she took from her hair the razor blade and actually committed suicide. So actually, we can see something optimistic about the fact that she, you can almost say, died definitely as a brave woman, but she died in her own way, and I would also almost say as a free woman, because she did it in a way as a free will. I want to thank you very much. I know it was difficult, but yeah, I know, but grazie mille.
Dunque, grazie per Grazie a Namashik per questa lezione. Tra l'altro, come tutti gli insegnanti, non fa mai 2 lezioni uguali. Ieri io, te e lei abbiamo sentito la stessa lezione, oggi completamente diversa, devo dire un po' più dura da reggere. Mi dispiace per voi che forse eravate meno pronti a reggere questo urto, ma come noi sappiamo gli insegnanti non fanno mai 2 lezioni uguali. Dunque, anche se Nama deve andare, c'è tempo per fare qualche domanda, quindi siamo lieti se avete qualche domanda da fare.
Mi è sembrato che lei abbia parlato di olocausto. Io che ho letto con attenzione come i colleghi Primo Levi, ricordo che Primo Levi preferisce usare il termine Shoah e dice che è meglio perché olocausto sacralizza la vittima, mentre i tedeschi la degradavano in ogni momento. Volevo chiedere come mai ha preferito olocausto.
I'm just waiting for translation. It's. Thank you. I will give. Thank you. I will give a short answer, and then Rita can answer. You're right, and usually we have this question, by the way, in Italy, and in France. In Italy, France, they say Shoah, and Primo Levi, by the way, was right saying Shoah. We usually in a habit. I don't understand why. Hearing myself in English we usually use the word Holocaust because it's English and it's international. But I have to say, I have to be more sensitive for this. Primo Levi is actually right. We should say Shoah from this theological perspective and because of the Latin word of Holocaust. But you can answer more. But you're right, actually. Rita, microphone, otherwise I can't hear you.
È una questione solo di uso dell'inglese. Io uso solo Shoah, noi usiamo solo Shoah, i francesi usano Shoah. Però se io parlo in inglese, o tento di parlare in inglese con chiunque, dico Holocaust. Quindi la parola giusta per noi in Italia, in Francia, in generale comunque in Europa, perché l'Unione Europea ha stabilito che il termine è questo, è Shoah, quindi noi usiamo questo. In inglese convenzionalmente si usa Holocaust. Fuori dall'Europa probabilmente si usi Shoah, molte persone non capiscono neanche di cosa stai parlando forse, però per noi la parola è questa, è Shoah sicuramente.
La distanza storica tra gli eventi e i giorni nostri chiaramente diventa sempre più ampia. A questa distanza storica corrisponde anche una distanza emotiva, per cui la mia generazione ha avuto i nonni che hanno potuto raccontare, hanno tramandato e nei loro racconti c'era anche un'emotività di quei fatti. La generazione dopo la mia, io ho 35 anni, non ha avuto probabilmente dei testimoni che hanno vissuto la guerra, che hanno vissuto gli eventi, e sarà sempre, più si va avanti, sarà sempre, si perderanno dei testimoni. Mi è capitato questi giorni di vedere un film interessante che si chiama L'Onda, che è un film che molti hanno visto, che racconta proprio come in realtà un insegnante in una sperimentazione eccessiva con una classe fa sperimentare una cosa che a questi ragazzi era impossibile, dicevano no, ma è impossibile che torni il nazismo, perché ormai è quasi dato assodato che è una cosa talmente lontana e talmente strana che è impossibile che si ripeta, mentre invece questa è la dimostrazione che qualcosa potrebbe risuccedere. Allora la domanda è proprio come attualizzare costantemente
anche il piano emotivo di una sofferenza tale come quella della deportazione. Grazie.
Grazie. Yad Vashem perspective is not the wave. I don't know if you saw the wave. Is a very interesting film. It's a teacher, history teacher, is kind of doing without the students knowing kind of dictatorship. But I have to say that in Yad Vashem, in the International School for Holocaust Studies, we do prefer to work concerning your problem, which is, it's going to be kind of a problem. We do prefer to work not with kind of, not with simulation, but to bring the story of one person and to give more stories of one person. I will give you an example. I know, if to go back to my lecture, okay, Ruth Elias's story is a really difficult story. But I think that even we're speaking about almost 70 years ago, you could feel empathy to this woman and to her story. And we have many other stories, and we have films. The film that you will see today is one of our methods, I would say, to approach these problems. Because we know Holocaust survivors are dying, and new generation will not meet Holocaust survivors. So in this film that we will see, what we are trying to do is to give the personal story of Holocaust survivors, and by this way we hope that future students will communicate and will feel attached to the subject. Okay, last one because I have to catch my plane. Sorry.
Grazie intanto di tutto.
Grazie.
Volevo chiedere, avevo letto tempo fa...
Wait, sorry. Can I from the beginning? Now can, so I didn't turn it on.
Avevo letto tempo fa della differenza tra uomini e donne nei campi, della solidarietà, relativa alla solidarietà, alla condivisione, che era molto maggiore tra le donne, tra di loro. Tante volte si sposavano anche, diciamo, casualmente una madre e una figlia, se le inventavano, nel senso che si davano forza l'un l'altra, una donna più anziana che sposava il fatto che una ragazza giovane potesse essere come la sua figlia, insomma. Ecco, tutto questo, il togliersi anche il pane dalla bocca per aiutare una compagna, e poi anche la salvezza di qualche neonato proprio tramite, perché c'è stato qualche neonato che si è salvato, almeno io ho letto così, tramite proprio la solidarietà, l'umanità delle donne, questo a differenza degli uomini che erano un pochino più individualisti, pare.
Grazie. As for the babies, we know about, in Auschwitz, about 2 babies who were born in the camp in the block, and thanks to the entire block, and we speak about a female block, were saved. As for solidarity, there is the claim that women support each other more than men. I have to say that I don't totally, I'm from the scholar who are not totally agree with this claim, but what you can see is that men, more than men, that women, more than men, did tend to create bigger, what is called surrogate families. They did tend more to men to create what is called, like, again, surrogate families. You can see that, you had women who survived individually and you had men who survived individually. But when we're speaking about group of support, we can see difference between men and women. Because, for example, if I go back to Primo Levi, his support group was Alberto, if you remember, if this is a man. And you can see, so they were 2. And you can see that when women were creating this surrogate family, we speak about bigger surrogate families. And we can see that women, actually tended more than men in the camps to nurture each other and to take care of each other. And this go back to early socialization of women. But we also have to keep in mind that we are speaking about the camps. And even early socialization of women, that women are usually raised to take care, to nurture each other, we still have to remember that this is the camp. And we have to remember that women who struggle to survive as men. Because sometimes I can hear the claim, sometimes from scholars, that women survived better, like morally better than men. And I have to say that in extreme situation of the camp, I don't always agree with this claim. We have to remember this is the extremists of the extremists. And there are gender differences who does not exist in the camp because of this extreme situation. And we have to keep it in mind, that it's not black and white answer. Okay. Grazie mille. Noi adesso, quello che vediamo noi adesso è un materiale, aspetta un secondo però, è un materiale di quelli prodotti dallo Yad Vashem, che sarò breve, poi vi spiego un pochino di più oggi pomeriggio per chi non sa che cos'è. È il museo della Shoah di Gerusalemme, quello che avete visto tante volte in televisione, quando magari vedete uno dei nostri politici che va in Israele, viene anche portato allo Yad Vashem. È un museo dove vanno i turisti per imparare, per approfondire la tematica della Shoah, ma è anche una scuola. A fianco della scuola ci sono aule, a fianco del museo ci sono aule per andare a lezione, è anche un luogo di ricerca, è anche la sede della Scuola Internazionale di Studi, è anche il luogo dove c'è il database delle vittime, dove si può andare a digitare un nome, e molti ci vanno, vengono dalle estreme parti del mondo per cercare magari il nome di un parente o di un amico, eccetera.
quindi è una cosa grossa al di là del museo. E si producono materiali per uso didattico, oggi ne parliamo di più, ne parleremo meglio, vi farò vedere dove trovarli, e si stanno producendo anche alcuni film. Questi film hanno una caratteristica, sono pensati per la scuola. L'idea qual è? Come diceva il nostro giovane collega prima, i testimoni stanno finendo, stiamo esaurendo i testimoni, sono anziani, ogni anno ne muore qualcuno. Abbiamo perso Shlomo Venezia, che i miei studenti che l'avevano visto a Rimini lo chiamavano il nostro amico Shlomo. Stiamo perdendo i grandi testimoni che hanno dedicato gli ultimi 10 anni a parlare nelle scuole. Allora Yad Vashem vuole cercare di salvare certe esperienze. Ha provato a prendere questi sopravvissuti, fargli raccontare la loro storia in un modo particolare, riportandoli sui luoghi dove la storia è accaduta. Per cui voi vedrete questi filmati che secondo me sono preziosi, questo in particolare è molto vicino al mio cuore, voi vedrete che in certi momenti alla storia della persona si sovrappongono filmati d'epoca e poi si sovrappongono le immagini della persona che torna nel luogo di cui si sta parlando. Sono film che durano 45 minuti, quindi usabilissimi a scuola. L'unica difficoltà per le scuole medie inferiori può essere che ci sono i sottotitoli in italiano che a volte possono andare forse un pochino veloci, e allora in quel caso l'insegnante o se li scarica prima oppure se ha difficoltà può scrivere a me, io ho il testo perché ci ho lavorato io e posso anche inviare il testo. Però il tipo di documento, la sua lunghezza secondo me, e il fatto che come tornando alla filosofia didattica dello Yad Vashem, come spesso lo Yad Vashem cerca di fare, si parla anche del prima e non solo della Shoah e del dopo, quindi di una speranza, di una salvezza. Noi consideriamo che questi siano davvero preziosi nell'uso a scuola. Allora adesso noi lo vediamo, siccome siamo tutti qui, tutti insegnanti, se volete dire qualcosa anche durante la visione non c'è problema, tanto lui parla in ebraico, quindi noi leggiamo i sottotitoli e poi ne parliamo magari brevemente dopo. Spegniamo anche la luce. Magari mi dite vicino perché però se quando si vede è un problema, forse vi tocca spostare tutti a questo lato. Vedete, abbiamo già perso la prima slide, forse ci dobbiamo andare dietro. Come facciamo? Patrizia, lo fai tornare indietro? Sì, vai sotto sulla barra, torna indietro un attimo, ecco. Questo di qua non si può più usare? Allora bisogna che cerchiate di guardarlo di qua, non so, perché ieri lo guardavamo in tutti e due. Via, l'hai mandato? Allora proviamo, fermalo. Come si può spostare questo? Cos'altro dà fastidio? Questi? Perché nella prima slide, ecco, c'è la spiegazione del fatto che Giovanni veniva dalla comunità ebraica di Salonicco, in Grecia, Ok. Te lo riassumo io. Salonicco è una stranissima città, un porto nel quale la maggior
אין מאושר ממני בעולם. יום כזה לעולם לא יחזור לי. אני בטוח שאני לא אזכה לראות עוד יום כזה. אני הייתי גר בשכונת ברון הירש, זו שכונה מאוד גדולה, בערך 3,000 נפשות, וכל אחד תיקר את השני. ברון הירש זה היה בנוי מצריפים. כל משפחה היה לו צריף לפי גודל המשפחה. אצלי במשפחה היו 6 אחיות, אני בן, אמא ואבא, היה לנו 2 חדרים, הכל מיטות, כולם ישנים ביחד. איזה שמחת חיים. אני כל כך אהבתי תותים, לא יכולתי להשתחרר מהתותים. הייתי זורק את התיק של הבית ספר בבית, ואני הייתי עולה על העץ. העץ היה, מה אני אגיד לך, כמו בית משותף, 6-7 מטר גובה. הייתי עולה יחף, יושב באיזה ענב וכותב תותים, וכשהייתי יורד מהעץ הייתי גורא את המכנסיים. ואמא שלי אומרת, עובדייקו, אני רוצה לראות אותך שיום אחד תבוא עם מכנסיים שלמים. כל יום אתה בא עם חצי מכנסיים. היהודים הלכו לבית ספר עברי, היו 6 כיתות, למדו שם עברית, יוונית ולדינו. לי הייתה מורה אחת יווניה נוצריה זקנה. איזה צרות אני עשיתי, הייתי שם לה סיכות בכיסא. היו מזמינים אותי ללוח, לא הייתי קם ללוח. הייתי שובר שמשות, ספסלים. ההורים שלי לא אהבו לי, וכל יום הייתי מקבל מכות. למה? עשיתי דברים לא טובים. אבל הייתה אחות אחת 4 שנים יותר מבוגרת ממני, שקראו לה לילי, ותמיד היא הייתה אומרת, אתה תהיה סבל, אתה לא רוצה ללמוד, אתה תהיה רק סבל. Αυτή είναι η μεγάλη. Εγώ θα σας δώσω τη μεγάλη κόρη και αυτή θα σας δώσω εσένα. אני הייתי מדריך נוער. איפה שאני הייתי גר היה פנס רחוב. שאלו אותי איפה המועדון. המועדון שלי היה מתחת לפנס. הייתי אוסף 30 ילדים, יותר צעירים ממני. הייתי משיב אותם באדמה, הייתי מספר להם סיפורים בלופים. כל כך ידעתי להמציא סיפורים, היו הילדים נרדמים, הייתי צריך לסחוב אותם בבית אחר כך. איזה רב זה היה, איזה מותק של אדם. הייתי רואה אותו ברחוב שבא לבית הכנסת, הייתי אוהב מנשק לו את היד, הוא עושה לי ברכה ככה. אני זוכר משפחות בשבת בבוקר היו יושבים כולם בחוץ, מפצים גרעינים, אוכלים בורקס, היו באים מבית הכנסת ההורים, כל אחד היה עושה פסטיליקות, בורקיטס, huevos enjaminados, uso. פה בסלוניקי היו 49 בית הכנס, נשאר בית כנסת אחד. לא יודע מה שהיה פה, הכל נשרף, אפר ואפר. לא נשאר זכר משום דבר. אני מרגיש באבל. מה אני יכול להגיד? בשלום. תבקשי שיהיה בריאות לכולם. שיהיה שלום בעם ישראל. ושיהיה טוב לכולם. באתי לבקר אותך ממרחקים. היו שני בתי קפה גדולים, הקפה של ארדיטי, הבית קפה של קרדומה, ושם היינו באים ושומעים חדשות מה מתרחש באירופה. שמענו שהגרמנים הכריזו מלחמה על פולין ב1 לספטמבר 1939, לא חשבנו שהגרמנים ייכנסו ליוון. לחודש, בשעה 8:30, אני שומע רעשים משונים, אף פעם לא שמעתי רעשים כאלה. אני יוצא החוצה, אני מסתכל, נהיה לחושך בעיניים. עשרות אווירונים. היה להם אווירונים שקראו להם סטוקות. ולאווירונים האלה היו סרנות. היו יורדים עד למטה, כל יוון זזו. פחד אלוה. לא עבר בערך שעה, שעתיים, 3, אני מסתכל בכביש הראשי, איזה שיירות של טנקים, משוריינים, אופנועים. ואני כל בוקר הייתי קם, קונה את העיתון ויושב בחנות של הדוד שלי וקורא. שום דבר לא היה. וזה לקח עד יוני 42. פה הגרמנים ביום ראשון היו מעלים את הדגל בבוקר עם מסדר, עם תזמורת של הצבא הגרמני, אנשי אס-אס. היות ובסלוניקי 70% מהעם זה היו יהודים, וכשהם החליטו לענות את טלאי הצהוב, אני יצאתי ברחוב, ראיתי כולם צהובים, כולם יהודים. הטלאי הצהוב היה כאן עם מספר, ואחד היה בגב, מתינוק ועד מבוגר, עד זקן. הרבה רחובות לא נתנו לנו להיכנס הגרמנים. אמרו לנו, אתם יכולים להיכנס מרחוב צדדים, רחובות ראשיים, אסור לכם לעבור. בזמן הגרמנים לא יכולנו לבוא להנה. כמעט שנה לא נגעו ביהודים. רק ב-1942 הגיע אייכמן. משם התחילה הטרגדיה. אני קניתי את העיתון הראשון וישבתי בחנות של הדוד שלי וראיתי איזה קריקטורות נגדנו עם אב טורקי, עם עיניים פוזלות, עם גיבנת. השפלה טוטלית. עשו מאיתנו זבל. זבל זה לא מילה, אני חושב לזבל היה יותר כבוד. השואה של יהודי יוון התחיל מהכיכר הזאת. פה אני ראיתי איך שהשכיבו את היהודים על הארץ ושפכו להם דלי מים והיו מרביצים להם עם השוד מכות. היינו בערך איזה 100 בחורים ולקחו אותנו לכל מיני כפרים והייתי שם בערך חודשיים. חזרתי הביתה ואני מספר לאמא שלי, אמא, את לא יודעת מה שאני עברתי. את לא יודעת ולא ידעתי שאחרי חודשיים מה שמחכה לנו. ב-15 למרץ 1943, שזה התאריך השחור ביותר בחיי, בשעה 8 הגרמנים לקחו את כל ברון הירש, שכונת ברון הירש, 2,500 תושבים, לתחנת הרכבת, ומשם הושלחו הטרנספורט הראשון, שהוא 109-432, הסריה של הטרנספורט, לאושוויץ. פה ריכזו את היהודים, כל הרחוב הזה, לכל האורך, ריכזו את כולם בחמישיות עם החבילות, מפה יצאנו לרכבת. ב-15 למרץ 1943 הביאו הגרמנים את כל שכונת ברון הירש פה בתחנת הרכבת. עמדו פה 80 קרונות עם 2 קטרים. על כל קרון עמדו 2 אנשי אס-אס עם שוט ביד וכלף, ומשם התחילו להכניס בלי לספור אנשים בפנים. כל קרון כזה נכנסו 100 איש. עכשיו אתם יכולים לתאר 100 איש בקרון, רבע מהקרון זה נתפס מהבגדים. 3/4 מהקרון לא מספיק ל100 איש. ישבו ילדים, נשים בהיריון, זקנים, חולים, נכים. 7 ימים ו7 לילות נסענו מפה לאושוויץ. 10 ילדים מתו כי לא היה שירותים, לא היה מים ולא היה אוכל. שנים אני משוחרר מאושוויץ. אני לא יכול להשתחרר מהקרונות האלה שאתם רואים פה. הגעתי פה ב-21 למרץ 1943 בשעה 2:30 בלילה. פה עמדו 2 אנשי אס-אס עם שוטים ו2 כלבים ופתחו את הקרונות והתחילו לצרוח ראוש, 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 ראוש. מי יכול לרדת? בחור בן 20 כמו עובדיה. כל הצעירים קפצו. אמא שלי הייתה יכולה לקפוץ מפה. התחילו להרביץ להם עם משוטים. איזה מכות. ירדו, קפצו, שברו רגליים. ילדים נעבדו מההורים, התחילו לצעוק אמא, מאמה, מאמה, מאמה. אינה מאמה, אינה אבא. סידרו אותם חמישיות, אמהות עם ילדים לחוט, מבוגרים לחוט וצעירים לחוט, ודוקטור מנגלה בא, לוקח שורה אחת עם 2 אצבעות, לינקס רקס, לינקס רקס, לינקס רקס, ממיין את היהודים. באו 10 משאיות, וזה היה מסכנים האלה שעלו למשאיות, לא זכו לשתות לטיפה מים, ישר למשרפות. ו6 אחיות אני לא שמעתי, לא ראיתי, אמא ואבא, משפחה מפוארת, ואף אחד לא נשאר. איש שהביאו אותנו מבירגנאו לאושוויץ, הכניסו אותנו בתוך השער הזה. אני הגעתי לשער הזה, קראו לי עובדיה ברו. אני עברתי את השער הזה, נהייתי מספר 109, 432. פה זה כתוב 40 פראי. הפראי זה שחרור. מי שהלך לקרמטוריו זה הפראי. פה שתי שורות היו כל הקפואים מסתדרים, ואיפה שהילדים שם הייתה תזמורת. היו יוצאים חולים, רעבים, מתים, יוצאים חמישיות עם תזמורת, מרשים, כאילו אנחנו חיילים. היינו מגיעים לפני השער. פה עמד רודולפס, היו צועקים מיצן אפ, כל אחד היה צריך להוריד את הכובע, מכה אחד. אני לא מאמין שאני נוגע בגדר הזה. הגדר הזה שאתם רואים פה, אף אסיר לא יכול להתקרב פה. פה יש 3 גדרות. הגרמנים היו מסמנים בשפה הגרמנית זהירות לא להתקרב 5 מטר, כי ב5 מטר היה יכול להיות אדם מתחשמל פה. כל החוטים האלה היו נדלקים כאילו אתה מדליק אש בבית, וזה כל הלילה לא יכולת לישון מהזמזומים של החוטים שהיה בוער. הכל היה בוער. אבל יש אנשים שלא התייאשו. אני אמרתי, אני מפה אני אצא, ויצאתי. עובדה שאני חי. זה בשבילי, שאני אמות, זה הקדיש שלי. זה הקדיש שלי. אם הילדים שלי יכבדו אותי, במוות שיעבירו את זה לעברית, ושיגידו מאיפה אבא שלהם בא. הגענו 400 בחורים לאושוויץ. הביאו אותנו למקלחת, ושם לכל אחד רשמו שם, תאריך הלידה, באיזה יום באנו, באיזה תאריך באנו, איזה סימני גוף יש לבן אדם, וזה הכל רשום, זה הכל אמת. זה כרטיס שאמרו לנו להורים שלנו לקנות כרטיס לצד אחד. זה כאילו היה מובן מאליו. כשאנחנו באים למקום כזה טוב, לא יחסור לנו שום דבר. איזה הבטחות. אחרי 10 ימים שהכניסו אותנו לאושוויץ מספר 1, החליטו הגרמנים להוציא אותנו לעבודות. 50 יהודי יוון, ביניהם אני, שלחו אותנו לבביץ. כשבאנו להנה, למחרת בבוקר, מוצאים אותנו למסדר, בא איש אס-אס, קצין, מביא אותי לצריף, אומר לי בגרמנית, תיכנס, קח מחרשה, תרתום 2 סוסים, קח מחרשה ונצא לשדה. ואני לא מבין מה שהוא אומר, והוא מתרגש, ומתחיל כללות, שמוציק יהודה, שטינקן יהודה, יהודי שלא יודע לעבוד, יהודי מסריח. בסוף הוא נכנס, הוציא את המחרשות, הביא אותי לשדה, אני לא יודע לחרוש. באוטו, לקח את השוט של הסוסים, משעה 6 בבוקר עד שעה 6 בערב, התחיל להרביץ למכות, סנטימטר של בשר לא היה לי בידיים. הגעתי לבביץ בחזרה, עליתי למיטה ואני אומר, רבונו של עולם, עשית כל כך ניסים, תעשה את זה נס שלא יהיה יום, שיהיה רק לילה. במשך 6 חודשים נשארנו רק 5 שהם החליטו לשלוח אותנו לאושוויץ, ובאושוויץ אנחנו מיועדים למשרפות. הגענו לאושוויץ, חבר שלי, היות והיה לו ג'וב מאוד גדול, יעקב מאסטרו, הוא הלך הוציא את הגלויונות שלנו, ראה שלא כתוב מקצוע, הוסיף מקצוע על כל אחד, והוא כתב לי שאני שלוסר מכניקר, מסגר מכונאי, והוא אמר לי, מחר בבוקר אתה הולך לעבוד באוניון. ואמרתי לו, יעקב, אני לא ראיתי פלייר בחיים, אתה שולח אותי למוות. הכל הוא ידע, הילד הזה. אמר לי, עובדיה, אתה הולך לשם, יהרגו אותך ממכות, אבל אתה בבית חרושת אתה נשאר. ובדיוק זה היה ככה, הרגו אותי ממכות, אבל אני בבית חרושת נשארתי. פה היה בית חרושת אוניון, בית חרושת לנשק. פה היו מוצאים רימונים ופצצות של 250 קילו. פה היינו מקבלים 6 מרקים בשבוע. הגרמנים קראו לזה פרמיה שי. אנחנו עם הפרמיה שי הזה יכלנו ללכת לקנטינה באושוויץ. מה יכלנו לקנות? כוס חרדל. 6 מרקים עבדתי בשבוע פרמיה שי בשביל לקנות כוס חרדל. אבל היהודים היו פיקחים. אני עם החרדל הייתי הולך למאפייה איפה שעבדו הפולנים, נתתי לו חרדל, הוא נתן לי לחם. עם הלחם הלכתי לקומנדו קנדה, נתתי להם לחם, נתנו לי סיגריות. ועם סיגריות הייתי עושה ביזנס. הייתי נותן לזה, הייתי נותן שם, זה נותן חתיכה לחם, זה נותן לי קצת מרק, והייתי חי, לא חי. אני פה ברחבה הזאת, אחרי שקיבלתי 60 מלכות בטוסי, הביאו אותי במקום הזה, ואמרו לי, פה אתה תעשה התעמלות, לשכב ולקום. אז אני שוכב, לא מספיק לשכב, כבר אומר לקום. לא מספיק לשכב, אומר לקום. נשארתי באפיסת כוחות, אמרתי, עובדת, תישאר, שיהרגו אותך. קיבלתי ביתה מהגרמני באשכים, ואני התחלתי לצרוח, אוי מדרה, אוי מדרה, איזה צעקות, איזה כאבים היו לי. ואני צורח ועוברת עליזה, עליזה עוברת, אני לא ראיתי את עליזה, אני ראיתי את הקאפו, היא עוברת, ראיתי שהקאפו נעצרה איזה חצי דקה, והלכו, לא ראיתי את עליזה. אבל עליזה שמעה מדרה, היא יודעת שזו מילה בספניולית, בספרדית. שאלה לקאפו, את יודעת מה? זה הבחור שקיבל את המכות, זה צריך להיות מיוון. אולי תפגיש אותנו. והקאפו אומר, תשמעי, אם אני אפגיש אתכם, אתם מסכנים את החיים, יכולים להוציא אתכם להורג. עליזה אמרה, אני רוצה לפגש איתו על מה שיהיה. והקאפו אמר, את יודעת מה? את נכנסת לי אצלי ללב. לקחה את עליזה, לקחה עגלה, שמה פצצה של 250 קילו ריקה על העגלה, ומפה נכנסו למחלקה. נכנסו למחלקה, והקאפו אומר לו, הנה זה הבחור שקיבל מכות. ועליזה בא ואומרת לי, אתה מיוון? כן, אני מיוון. גם אני מיוון. מאיפה מיוון? מסלוניקי. גם אני מסלוניקי. אבל היא הייתה כל כך יפה, אני השתגעתי, כבר לא כאב לי הטוסיק, כבר לא כאב שום דבר, רק רציתי לראות עליזה. עליזה, שהייתה בחורה בת 16 וחצי. היו פה רק אסירות, הם פה נכנס, הם פה יוצא, חוץ מהרופאים הגרמנים, רופא אחד פולני ורופא אחד יהודי. הביאו אותם פה, היו בערך חודש ימים, ודוקטור מנגלה בא והתחיל לקרוא להוצאת לניתוחים. קראו את המספרים, 3 לניתוח, ביניהם הייתה עליזה. ועליזה שמע שקוראים לה ניתוח, אלוהים נתן לה כוח של אריה, הזיז את המיטות, עשה להם עמדה, והתחילה לצרוח. ודוקטור שומן עולה עם האקדח ואמר, שיסן לי, אני הורג אותה. ועליזה אומרת, שיסן. דוקטור שומן אומר, ליהודי זה כבוד לתת כדור, יהודי רק במשרפות. ואת תרדי מפה לחדר הניתוח, תזחלי כמו נחש, ואותך אני נתח בסוף. שמתי שניתחו את הבחורה הראשונה היה אזעקה, ודוקטור מנגלה נתן הוראה שכולם ילכו למקלט, והוא מטיל את הניתוח של הבחורה השנייה ואת עליזה, שהוא מנתח דוקטור שמואל עם רופא מלווה שיראה שהוא יעשה ניתוחים אמיתיים. דוקטור שמואל פתח להם את הבטן, הוציא מה שהוציא, לקחו אותה למחלקה, וכל יום היה בא להחליט את התחושות של עליזה, ועליזה הייתה אומר לו, שטן, מנוול, אני בת 16 וחצי למה עשית לי ניתוח, והוא היה אומר לו בצרפתית לעליזה, עליזה, תשתדלי להישאר בחיים, יבוא יום אחד, את תדעי ממני. ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, שאני יצאתי מהגיהינום הזה, ואני הגעתי בכוחות עצמי, עם כסף שלי, לבקר במטהאוזן אחרי 62 שנים. מה שפה לא עשית, זה לא היה טוב. כשהביאו אותנו פה היו כבר מיליונים, לא היה מקום. כבר לא היה להם גם עבודות בשביל לתת לנו. אז החזיקו אותם במחנה, בעינויים שימותו. לרדת מהמדרגות, לעלות עם האבן מהמדרגות, לרדת מהמדרגות בבוקר, לעלות אחרי צהריים, בן אדם באפיסת רוחותיו מוכרח למות.
Quello che noi dobbiamo fare, dobbiamo testimoniare sempre. Ciao.
Ciao bambina.
Ciao bambina, vedi la canzone.
Muchos españoles aquí. En Mauthausen. Como salimos de aquí nosotros? Amén. Ahora. ואני גם נתתי נדר באושוויץ שאני מוכרח לצאת מכאן. הנדר נמשך, אני לצאת מפה לספר לעולם מה שבגיהינום הזה הלך. רק לספר, מכיוון שאנשים היו אומרים אחד לשני, מי שישאר בחיים שיספר בחוץ בפלנטה הזאת הלך. זה מה שהשאיר אותנו. היו כאלה שלא החזיקו מעמד, היו נוגעים בגדר ומתים. לא היו יכולים להחזיק מעמד. אני פה השתחררתי בתוך בור מים, רציתי לטבט, שכבתי בתוך הבור, ואני צועק, אוי אלוהים, חתיכה לחם. פתאום אני רואה שני אנשים עם אלונקה, מוצאים אותי מהבור, מה זה ב-40 קילו בשביל שני חיילים אמריקאים? זה כאילו מוצאים איזה סמרטוט. משכיבים אותי באלונקה, הביאו אותי ברחבה שם, עשרות אנשים. באו אמבולנסים, אז היו מסדרים 3-4 אנשים, שולחים אותם לבית החולים, כל מיני בית החולים. אני באתי שם, היו לי 500,000 קינים. והאחיות הכניסו אותי לאמבטיה, הפשיטו אותי, אני כבר התביישתי מהקינים. ואני שומע שאחות אחד בגרמנית אומר לשנייה, ארז מיין קין. וואלה, אני אמרתי, ריבונו של עולם, גרמניה מדברת ארז מיין קין? פתאום רוחצים אותי, מנקים אותי במגבת, משכיבים אותי במיטה לבנה. אני אמרתי, עובדיה, זה אתה פה? זה אתה ששוכב תכף אינפוזיות, דם ונוזלים איזה חודש וחצי בלי אוכל שום דבר. אחרי זה התחילו כמו תינוק, חצי ביסקוויט, בצהריים קצת מרק, עד שהגעתי למצב כזה שכל הרופאים השתגעו. הייתי אוכל ארוחת בוקר, 5 ביצים חביתה, 22 לחמניות. אחר כך אחות, היא באה לי עם צלחית מרק. אני אמרתי לה, שווסטר, ברינג מיר דה גנצה טנק, כל הסיר תביא פה. מה זה צלח? אנשים השתגעו. אני הייתי הולך, היו באים רשימות של הצלב האדום בוועד הקהילה. וכל יום הייתי הולך לחפש, לא חשבתי על עליזה. אני לא האמנתי על עליזה שיכולה לעשות צעדת המוות. אבל 6 חודשים, יום, יום אחד אני הולך, אני רואה ברשימת עליזה. אז אמרתי, אני אחכה אולי, תבוא ליוון, אני בא ליוון, בוועד הקהילה. נפגשתי, היא נרשמת, אני נכנס, עליזה, עובדיה, נדברנו. אנשים חשבו, זה אח ואחות. היא אמרה לי, שלא תחשוב שאני שכחתי מה שכתבת לי בפתק. אבל אני לא יכולה לעבור, אתה איבדת את המשפחה הגדולה, אני תמורה לא יכולה לתת לך. אמרתי, אני לא רוצה ילדים. אני רוצה להתחתן איתך, לא רוצה ילדים. אז היא אמרה לי, אם תחתום בכתובה שאתה מבטל על ילדים, אני מתחתן איתך. אמרתי לה, חתימה את רוצה? 17 חתימות אני אחתום. התחתנתי מלא. כשהגענו לארץ, אנחנו גרנו ברפת, ואיזו אישה רחמה על עליזה, והזמינה את עליזה להתרחץ אצלה, כי לא היה לנו מקלחת ברפת. עליזה הלכה שם זה 5-6 פעמים להתרחץ, ובא ערב אחד ואמר לי, עובדיה, אני אצל גברת גולדברג לא הולכת להתרחץ יותר. שאלתי אותו, למה? אני נדבקתי מהמחלה של גברת גולדברג. מה יש לגברת גולדברג? מה אתה לא ראית איזה בטן יש לה גדולה? אני נדבקתי מהמחלה שלה. לקחנו את עליזה לבלינסון, בדקו את עליזה. עליזה הייתה בהיריון בחודש שלישי מיעקב. אני יוצא החוצה ואני נוסע באוטובוס, אני בא לרמתיים, מרמתיים למגדיל זה בערך איזה 0.5 קילומטר, ואני כל הדרך צועק, יש לי ילד, יש! אנשים חושבים שאני פסיכי. פה הייתה בחורה אחת שקראו לה עליזה צרפתי. אני הכרתי אותה בבית חרוש שעבדתי ביחד, והיינו נפגשים בסדר, ושם נתתי נדר לעליזה, אם במקרה יוצאים מהגיהינום הזה, מתחתנים. יצאנו שנינו והתחתנו והקמנו משפחה בישראל. זה הניצחון על הנאצים. באתי פה עם הנכדים, עם הילדים, הסתובבתי בכל הארץ, ואמרתי, זה הניצחון לנאצים. שאני ניצחתי לנאצים, שגידלתי משפחה, השתחררתי מאושוויץ, ראיתי את הסוף של היטלר, ראיתי את הסוף של הימלר, ראיתי את הסוף של כל הגנרלים, ואני פה בן של פועל. אני לא יודע איזה זכות היה לי, היו רבנים, היו פרופסורים, אני לא יודע איזה מזל היה לי שאני נשארתי בחיים. למה הרב הזה לא יכול להישאר בחיים?
Meglio? Sì. Ecco, vi dicevo, alle superiori va benissimo. Voglio farla corta perché c'è la pausa pranzo, rispetta appieno la filosofia didattica dello Yad Vashem, su cui torneremo oggi pomeriggio, che è l'idea di raccontare la storia del singolo, quindi tirare fuori dalla Shoah una persona, in questo caso due perché c'è anche Alisa, e tirare fuori la loro storia, una storia in questo caso che va a finire bene, una storia che abbia anche il prima, perché un altro dei contenuti su cui noi torniamo sempre è che gli ebrei non è che appaiono nel momento in cui comincia la Shoah, c'è una storia ebraica molto variegata, molto differenziata, che ha aspetti molto diversi all'interno, tra gli ebrei più osservanti e soprattutto nell'est Europa, quelli totalmente assimilati dell'Europa occidentale, gli italiani, i francesi, eccetera. C'è una storia prima che viene completamente interrotta, c'è un intero popolo che va perduto, e poi dentro questo filmato ci sono degli aspetti anche su cui qualcuno di voi può avere interesse a riflettere, tipo il momento della propaganda, che secondo me è molto interessante. Cominciano ad apparire sui giornali greci le vignette con la deformazione del corpo. Ecco, questo volendo uno si può occupare di questo. E lui dice di colpo diventiamo immondizia, oppure anche il momento in cui dice tutta la Grecia tremava, non avremmo mai immaginato che i tedeschi arrivassero qui. Ci sono molti aspetti interessanti. Se pensate poi che era Auschwitz nello stesso momento in cui c'era Primo Levi, chi legge per esempio Se questo è un uomo trova anche qui il collegamento, e ne parliamo oggi. Sulla pagina italiana dello Yad Vashem ci sono delle unità didattiche che si possono collegare molto bene alla visione di questo film, che possono servire di approfondimento. Ad esempio c'è il discorso del trasporto. Chi ha letto un po' di testimonianze sa che il trasporto è stato uno dei momenti che non viene dimenticato mai. Lui dice: non mi sono mai liberato da questo treno, ma anche Primo Levi parla tantissimo del trasporto. Ecco, e sulla pagina italiana dello Yad Vashem c'è un'unità didattica con dei documenti sul trasporto. Quindi mi dispiace che devo essere un po' veloce, ma la pausa pranzo, che è qui all'uscita sulla destra, è già pronta. Spero che tutti voi vi fermiate. C'è qualcuno che va via presto, gli do un foglio informativo. Se ci siete anche oggi, ecco, allora magari quelli che pensano di non fermarsi vengono da me che gli do un foglio. Ecco, e io vi ripeto, sulla pagina italiana del sito del Vashem trovate la locandina del film e potete ordinarlo. Oppure fate una rete di informazione con i colleghi che ce l'hanno qui e vi fate mandare una copia. Vi ripeto, lo Yad Vashem ha una scuola che fa formazione agli insegnanti di tutto il mondo. Io faccio parte del desk Europa, il desk Italia è dentro il desk Europa. Il desk Europa è quello che ha collaborato col sede dell'Assemblea dell'Emilia Romagna per fare questo incontro. Quindi ogni anno il Desk Europa organizza un seminario per gli insegnanti italiani a Gerusalemme. Il prossimo sarà a fine agosto, e dopo io oggi pomeriggio vi do una informazione riguardo a questo. Intanto vi prego, se avete delle osservazioni da fare o delle riflessioni, adesso oppure dopo la pausa pranzo, ci ritroviamo qui e ne riparliamo. Ok?
Poche informazioni di natura organizzativa. Allora, il buffet è qui, ci seguite dietro questa porta ed è già pronto, quindi quando ci alzeremo da qui possiamo andare di là al buffet. All'1 ritorniamo in questa aula e vi invitiamo a guardare, ci sono 4 workshop, vi invitiamo a guardare a quale iscrivervi, esatto, intanto cominciate a guardare a quale iscrivervi, dopodiché noi vi accompagneremo nelle aule nelle quali si terranno i vari workshop, ok? Quindi all'1 qui.